Part 167. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1671. Nanshan Wanjiao, Yezixi and Luo Bin also gradually woke up and regained consciousness. When they came to Wu Yu's side, just like Wu Yu, they were all stunned by the soundless immortal body of Mo Lion lying in the void in front of them. Brother Wu Yu, was he killed by you? Yezixi couldn't believe it. After all, she clearly remembered how she had no ability to resist under the ancient soul song. Wu Yu was actually able to kill Demon Li Yin in this state. What kind of terrifying power is this? I'm afraid the thing we should be struggling with now shouldn't be how to kill Mo Lion, right? Nanshan Wanjiao's expression became solemn. Although he had just recovered, it did not affect his judgment of the matter. This demon lion is a disciple of the Bodhi Patriarch, and the most important thing is an immortal emperor. In the whole in heaven, everyone knows how important the immortal emperor is. We killed an immortal emperor, which is truly a violation of heavenly rules. Yes. Only then did Yezixi become frightened. At this time, Wu Yu was not too panicked. Anyway, the person was already killed, so there was no point in regretting it. He didn't expect that after Luo Bin used Tianlong to merge with himself, he would be able to possess such terrifying power. He could kill Demon Li Yin, who was in the second level of Immortal Emperor Immortal, with one blow. However, the consequences of this matter must be serious. In heaven, killing the Emperor Immortal is a big mistake. An Immortal Emperor is very important in heaven, and Mo Lion is a member of the four heavenly kings. Among the four heavenly kings, Mo Lion's status is much more important than the previous Mo Yuji. You must know that the Immortal Emperor is an eternal existence. The death of one of them will affect the entire heaven. What's more, for the four heavenly kings, they originally disliked Wu Yu and wanted to capture him and torture him. As a result, not only did they fail to catch Wu Yu, but Mo Lion was also beheaded by Wu Yu. How about we run away now? Nanshan Wanjiao suddenly trembled and became a little scared when he thought of the possible consequences. He was originally fearless, but in fact, when faced with such a behemoth as the entire heaven, he still did not dare to challenge it lightly. It's late. Luo Bin pointed sternly at the surrounding space. They could see that just now, the space here began to vibrate. It seemed that an extremely powerful existence was shattering the void and wanted to come around them. Obviously, the death of Mo Lion here immediately attracted the attention of many powerful beings in heaven, and they were immediately ready to rush over. It was obviously too late to run away. What's more, even if they escape, where can they escape to? Are you going to escape back to the demon god realm and live in hiding for the rest of your life? Anyway, Wu Yu was unwilling. Instead, he thought that now that he had the protection of Patriarch Bodhi, the situation should not be so bad. What's more, this matter was originally initiated by Mo Lion himself. Although they killed Mo Lion, but it's just self-defense. Wu Yu always felt that Patriarch Bodhi had a kind feeling towards him and would not harm him, so there shouldn't be much of a problem waiting for Patriarch Bodhi to handle this matter. The most important thing is that even if he wants to run now, he can't. When he was sure that Mo Lion was dead, the surrounding space began to vibrate, and powerful beings began to descend into this space one after another. The first one to arrive was naturally Patriarch Bodhi. An ordinary-looking old man in grey robe appeared silently near Wu Yu. He glanced at Mo Lion's body and frowned in an extremely rare way. You must know that with the status of Patriarch Bodhi, this heavenly court can allow. He didn't frown much. Patriarch Bodhi arrived at the scene first, and Wu Yu was even less likely to leave. He could only respectfully shout, "Grand Master." Then Patriarch Bodhi glanced at him and nodded solemnly, without any intention of blaming him. This made Wu Yu relax a little. It seemed that Patriarch Bodhi was on his side. Immediately afterwards, emperors and immortals came around one after another, all disciples of Patriarch Bodhi. Just after Patriarch Bodhi arrived, it was Emperor Yuan Chan who looked a little arrogant. He seemed to have known early on that Mo Lion wanted to harm Wu Yu, but he never expected that Mo Lion was no match for Wu Yu. After launching an attack on Wu Yu, he was actually killed by Wu Yu. This was something he simply couldn't believe. You know, Mo Lion has been an immortal emperor for who knows how many thousands of years. How could he not be able to defeat such a young boy who has only reached the realm of 9 heavens immortal king? When Emperor Yuan Chan came to the scene and saw Mo Lion's body with his own eyes, his eyes really widened. You actually killed the younger brother of King Chiguo. How audacious! He was extremely shocked. He obviously didn't expect that Wu Yu really killed Mo Lion. What kind of combat power did this boy have? Of course Wu Yu did not answer the Emperor Yuan Chan, but faced Patriarch Bodhi respectfully and explained in a deep voice, "Master, disciple Wu Yu accidentally killed brother Mo Lion and was willing to be punished. However, this matter is it was Mo Lion who started it. If the disciples had not stood up to resist, I and my friends would be the ones who would die now." Patriarch Bodhi nodded after hearing this, and then pressed his hands to indicate that he didn't need to say more. Wu Yu could see a kind of calmness in Patriarch Bodhi's eyes. Obviously, even if such a big thing happened, it would not be unsolvable for Patriarch Bodhi, but even Patriarch Bodhi would definitely have to face a lot of pressure. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. Immediately afterwards, Emperor Immortal Zhuexing, Emperor Immortal Zhuikong and other disciples of Patriarch Bodhi also rushed over and surrounded Wu Yu and the others. Of course they saw Mo Lion's body, and they all felt as if the sky had fallen. This was a huge event in heaven. Even if they had lived for 1,000,000 years or more, they would rarely see such a thing happen. Unexpectedly, Wu Yu had only been in Fang Kunshan for 100 years, and he would have done such a great thing. Some of the disciples of Patriarch Bodhi began to blame Wu Yu. To them, Wu Yu doing such a thing was simply discrediting the entire Xuanhuan Sangxing cave. Such incidents were really too bad. However, when the surroundings were full of accusations, there were still people speaking for Wu Yu. That was Emperor Zhuexing. Junior brother Wu Yu definitely did not intend to kill Mo Lion. I have discovered before that Mo Lion has some sneaky moves. If he attacks first, junior brother Wu Yu will resist. It's understandable that I killed him by mistake. Of course, this kind of argument cannot withstand any storm in the entire family of Patriarch Bodhi. Wu Yu, this kid, caused such a big incident just 100 years after starting his career. He is simply treasonous and deserves death. For committing such a heinous crime, I'm afraid Wu Yu will have no chance of survival. Not even the Patriarch can protect him. Yes, this is a matter that violates the laws of heaven. It is absolutely impossible to be lenient. The 4 heavenly kings are not people to be trifled with. Once they come together, even the ancestors may not be able to withstand the pressure. It's really for us. Xuanhuan Sangxing cave is causing trouble. Almost immediately, Wu Yu was swallowed up by the voice of reproach, but he did not feel any excitement because Patriarch Bodhi was present and he believed that Patriarch would handle the matter fairly. Moreover, the criticisms around him were all directed at him, not at Nanshan Wanjiao and the other 3, which made Wu Yu feel more relieved. This matter should not affect Nanshan Wanjiao and the others. Even if he is punished, it should only be Wu Yu himself. It is not easy for an emperor to appear. The death of Mo Lion is really a great loss to our heaven. Wu Yu, you come with me. Patriarch Bodhi's expression became a little serious, and he waved to Wu Yu, and then led everyone back to Xuanhuan Sangxing cave. It seemed that he was going to do something to Wu Yu. Elsewhere in heaven, Demon Li Hai, the heavenly king of the country, and Demon Li Yin have a deep brotherhood and are connected by blood. When Mo Lion was beheaded, he had already noticed it, and through some magical means, he had seen the scene in Fangkan Tianzhong. Mo Lion was actually smashed to death by Wu Yu with a Ruyi golden cudgel. When the heavenly King Chiguo saw this scene, his eyes were almost splitting. Wu Yu, this heavenly king will kill you. This hatred is irreconcilable. The king of growth, the king of Duoan, and the king of Guangmu all came after hearing the news. After receiving the news, they were all extremely angry. How dare you kill the emperor immortal of my family, this son must be eliminated. The gathering of the four heavenly kings is a powerful force even for true God Erlang, not to mention the angry four heavenly kings, no one dares to offend them again. The four heavenly kings have not been together for a long time, but this time Mo Lion's death forced them to gather together to seek justice for Mo Lion. Let's go to Fangkuntian. I want to see if Patriarch Bodhi still protects that kid after such a big thing happened. Yes, if you don't give us an explanation, we will definitely go to the Jade Emperor and ask him to uphold justice. The four angry heavenly kings began to rush towards Fangkuntian. At the same time, there are many other Emperor Immortals who are now rushing towards Fangkuntian. No Emperor Immortal has fallen in heaven for a long time. This time, the Emperor Immortal from the four heavenly king groups died. The matter is very big. Many people want to see if Patriarch Bodhi will still insist on protecting Wu Yu. Suddenly, the entire square-inch sky was turbulent, and tyrannical emperors and immortals kept coming, wanting to know how Wu Yu would be dealt with. Even some ghosts and gods from hell came hiding in the dark, wanting to see what would happen to Wu Yu. Originally, Wu Yu had some enemies in heaven and hell, but now almost all of these enemies have gathered together. Originally, when they heard that Patriarch Bodhi had accepted Wu Yu as his disciple, they thought that there was no chance for revenge, but they did not expect that the opportunity would come so quickly. If nothing else happened, Wu Yu would almost be in a certain death situation this time. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1672. The whole heaven was stirred up. However, Wu Yu didn't know the situation outside. He only knew that there was a lot of noise this time. King Chiguo, the ancient giant spirit god, and the true god Erlang would definitely not give up. I'm afraid they would come to Fangkuntian soon. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. At this moment, he was alone with Patriarch Bodhi. In the Bodhi Hall, Patriarch Bodhi was still wearing grey robes and sitting on the futon. This time his expression became a little serious. It was obvious that Wu Yu killed Mo Lion. This matter was still very serious. He was not relying on his fame. It can be solved. Well. Patriarch Bodhi shook his head, this matter is difficult to handle. If I don't punish you, I'm afraid it will be difficult to convince the public, and there will be no way to explain to the immortals. Wu Yu saw his difficulty, and at the same time he also knew very well that if he was punished by Patriarch Bodhi, his outcome would be much better. After all, he always felt that Patriarch Bodhi was kinder and would not be too difficult for him. If Patriarch Bodhi did not punish himself and handed him over to the hands of other immortals, the end would definitely be miserable. So Wu Yu thought for a moment, then took the initiative to salute and request, Master, disciple Wu Yu, is willing to accept punishment. Although he has only been under the disciples of Patriarch Bodhi for 100 years, Wu Yu has benefited a lot from each of the Patriarch's sermons over the past 100 years, allowing him to move closer to the Eternal Emperor Immortal faster, even faster than when he studied the era breakthrough in the tomb of the Eternal Emperor. The divine formation will then devour the corpse of the Emperor Demon even faster. After all, this Bodhi Patriarch is the most ancient and ancient immortal in heaven. Even if he only speaks a little bit about his understanding, it will be of great benefit to Wu Yu. Therefore, Wu Yu already has some trust in Patriarch Bodhi. Such existence should not harm yourself, right? Okay. Just follow me. Patriarch Bodhi smiled gently. For him, it was best that Wu Yu was willing to accept punishment, otherwise it would be really troublesome. He stood up and led Wu Yu towards the outside of the Bodhi hall. Wu Yu followed him. When he went out, he saw that almost all the disciples of Patriarch Bodhi had gathered outside the Bodhi hall. They were all communicating and whispering in private. When Patriarch Bodhi appeared with Wu Yu, the immortal emperors and immortals under Patriarch Bodhi immediately fell silent. Each of them looked curious, obviously they wanted to know what kind of punishment Wu Yu would suffer. If he cannot convince the public, it will be difficult to say what will happen to Wu Yu when the four heavenly kings, True God Erlang and other emperors arrive. This kind of thing was the first time for Patriarch Bodhi, so many emperors and immortals were very curious. At this time, Patriarch Bodhi stretched out his hand, pressed it out of thin air, and signaled all the emperors and immortals to be silent, and then said with a somewhat serious expression, "Today's disciple, Wu Yu, killed the immortal emperor immortal demon Li Yin. In view of the fact that Wu Yu missed it in self-defense. So the crime will not lead to death. However, the death penalty can be avoided, and the living crime will not escape. After 3 days, he will be imprisoned for 10,000 years in the Tai Chi wheel." As soon as these words came out, all the immortals were in an uproar. Wu Yu just heard about the Tai Chi wheel and didn't know what it was, but he felt that Patriarch Bodhi was quite kind to him behind the scenes, and he probably didn't really want to harm him. Otherwise, why would he be imprisoned? With Patriarch Bodhi's ability, he could use some random means or even say a few words to make Wu Yu's life worse than death. But looking at the expressions of other disciples of Patriarch Bodhi, this Tai Chi wheel seemed to be an extremely extraordinary thing. Once imprisoned in it, it seemed that they would face extremely serious consequences. Wu Yu didn't know what they were specifically. All the immortals began to communicate privately, pointing at Wu Yu from time to time, with emotions such as gloating and pity in their eyes. It was obvious that these immortals were very afraid of the Tai Chi wheel. It was not convenient for Wu Yu to ask more questions now, so he could only swallow his curiosity about the Tai Chi wheel. Anyway, there were still 3 days. In these 3 days, he could chat with Zhuexing Emperor Xian and find out what the Tai Chi wheel was. What kind of existence is it? The punishment has been set. Wu Yu made a mistake today, I hope you all will take it as a warning and don't make the same mistake again. Patriarch Bodhi warned the immortals with a serious expression. All the emperors and immortals looked seriously and saluted respectfully. I sincerely follow the teachings of our ancestors. These emperor immortals are not people who like to cause trouble. They have not had any trouble for so many years. The occasional small conflict will not lead to such a major event as the death of the emperor immortal. It is unimaginable that Wu Yu would kill the emperor immortal just 100 years after his arrival, which is unimaginable. Emperor Yuan Chan, Emperor Zhuikong and other disciples of Patriarch Bodhi finally cast sympathetic glances at Wu Yu. After entering the Tai Chi wheel, there is basically no chance of coming out. I originally thought that the ancestor would give a light punishment, but I didn't expect the punishment to be so severe, Emperor Yuan Chan said in a low voice. Yes, in the Tai Chi wheel for 10,000 years, even the Emperor Immortal will basically die in it, not to mention that he has not yet stepped into the realm of the Emperor Immortal. Alas, Emperor Zhuikong felt it was a pity. He saw looking at Wu Yu, I feel that Wu Yu is really a peerless genius. Being able to kill Demon Lion, the second-level Immortal Emperor Immortal, at the level of the 9 Heavens Immortal King, is this not a genius? It's a pity that if you violate the rules of heaven, you will definitely end up miserable. In this heaven ruled by immortals, those who kill the Emperor Immortal will never have a good ending. Wu Yu didn't hear the words between them. After Patriarch Bodhi made his announcement, he returned to his palace. Next, he still has 3 days to prepare. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. This time is very short, and it is basically impossible to do other things to deal with it. It can only be said that in a short period of time, if you can understand more about the Tai Chi wheel, you will have more chances to survive. I don't think this Tai Chi will is a good place. Maybe even emperors and immortals could die in it. Nanshan Wanjiao is now with Wu Yu. Yezixi and Luo Bai were also nearby, looking sad. No matter what, Patriarch Bodhi will not harm me. I just need to hold on for 10,000 years. I won't die in there. Wu Yu frowned. He felt that no matter how serious the situation in the Tai Chi Wheel was, since Patriarch Bodhi arranged for him to be there, he should not be allowed to die there. After all, he could feel that Patriarch Bodhi still valued him. You must know that he is a disciple of Patriarch Bodhi like Mo Lion, but Patriarch Bodhi did not blame himself. He just explained that he must punish himself, otherwise other emperors and immortals would be unconvinced, and he could not suppress it. This made Wu Yu feel that Patriarch Bodhi was somewhat attracted to him. But exactly how that is, I really don't know. At night, Emperor Xuexing took the initiative to find Wu Yu. Wu Yu, I don't have much time left for you. Senior brother is here to explain it to you. I'm afraid you still don't know what the Tai Chi Wheel is, right? Emperor Xuexing stepped into Wu Yu's palace, found Wu Yu and spoke to him alone. Senior brother, please tell me. Wu Yu also looked serious. This was related to his whereabouts in the next 10,000 years. If someone came to explain the details to him, he could not ignore it. Only then did Xuexing Emperor Immortal speak eloquently. It turns out that the Tai Chi Wheel turned out to be the most famous epical artifact of Patriarch Bodhi, the most famous in the entire heaven. It is a Tai Chi millstone, divided into two parts. The black part is the devil's battlefield, and the eternal battlefield in the white part. Wu Yu will be imprisoned in the black part of the devil battlefield. It is said that in the heavenly demon battlefield, there are countless gods and goddesses born in ancient times, called celestial demons. These heavenly demons can bite immortals. For people below the level of Emperor Immortal, it is simply a nightmare-like existence. These demons are invisible and colorless, but they are everywhere. They may appear suddenly at any time, invade the human body, and bite the gods. The ordinary nine heavens immortal king may not be able to hold on even if he is thrown in for a year. It is almost impossible to die in pain and survive for 10,000 years. Emperor Xuexing looked very shocked now. He shook his head while explaining. He originally felt that Patriarch Bodhi would not embarrass Wu Yu and give Wu Yu such a severe punishment, but he did not expect that Patriarch Bodhi would imprison Wu Yu in the battlefield of demons. This was really an extremely terrifying punishment. This punishment is not even easier than the evil spirit abyss where the ancient giant spirit god wanted to imprison Wu Yu before. It can be said that it is absolutely a punishment without any favoritism. The battlefield of demons described by Emperor Xuexing in this way made Luo Bai, Yezixi and Nanshan Wanjiao even more worried. The Tai Chi Wheel actually exists like this. Has anyone ever entered this Tai Chi Wheel before and come out alive? Luo Ben asked very nervously. Yes, there is, but that's the realm of the Emperor Immortal, and it doesn't last that long. Xuexing Emperor Immortal shook his head. In the realm below the Emperor Immortal, once imprisoned in the heavenly demon battlefield, there is no precedent for being able to escape alive. Of course, the Patriarch rarely uses the heavenly demon battlefield to punish others. Basically, it is used to punish others. Imprisoning some vicious evil immortals, I can't believe that Wu Yu will be punished. Emperor Xuexing said so seriously that Luo Ben and the others were even more worried. Wu Yu smiled and seemed quite calm. Don't worry, everyone. Since the Patriarch punished me for entering this demon battlefield, he must have had his intention. He couldn't have deliberately wanted me to die. I trust the Patriarch on this point. Alas. In fact, I don't even know what the founder is thinking. Emperor Xuexing shook his head. You will know how terrifying that devil is after you go in. It's too early to say anything now. Wu Yu, senior brother, I hope you can really come out alive, so that nothing will happen. With such a severe punishment, the patriarch will definitely explain it to the four heavenly kings and ask them to write off their past affairs. This is naturally a good thing for Wu Yu, but after he killed Mo Lion, how could the four heavenly kings agree to write off the previous matter so easily? Unless the demon battlefield is really scary. This made Wu Yu take it a little seriously and nodded solemnly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1673. Luo Bin, Nanshan Wanjiao, and Yezixi all became nervous and worried. If the demon battlefield was so terrifying, could Wu Yu really survive in it for 10,000 years? But Wu Yu has confidence in Patriarch Bodhi, or in himself. He waved his hand and said with a smile, "Don't worry too much, this is the best result. After all, if you kill an emperor immortal, if you leave it to Erlang Zhenshen and others, he will almost certainly die. It's not a bad thing to say. It's just that Luo Bin couldn't stop worrying. Of course, it's hard to say yet." Xuexing Emperor Immortal continued, "After all, Mo Lion is an important figure in the Four Heavenly Kings clan, and he is also an Emperor Immortal after all. It may not be possible to wipe out the Four Heavenly Kings in one go. At present, the most important thing for Junior Brother, it's better to survive the 10,000 years in the demonic battlefield, so don't worry about anything else." Wu Yu nodded. By the way, the Patriarch's Tai Chi will is divided into yin and yang. In addition to the demonic battlefield, there is also the eternal battlefield. Xuexing Emperor Immortal said, "You may not know this yet, but it is precisely because of this eternal battlefield that the Patriarch has become a respected figure in the entire heaven. Even the top Emperor Immortal at the level of Erlang True God, I am in awe of my ancestor. Wu Yu, do you know what is special about this eternal battlefield?" Wu Yu shook his head. He had only been here for a short time and had not heard anything about the eternal battlefield. Of course he didn't know. It's because in this eternal battlefield, contrary to the battlefield of demons, there exists a kind of all-things spirit called eternity. This all-things spirit is said to be able to help the Nine Heavens Immortal King to achieve the realm of the Immortal Emperor. In the entire heaven, this is the treasure that helps the most to become an emperor. It can even be said to be an artifact. Emperor Xuexing explained, "Those top Emperor Immortals all want their descendants to have the opportunity to enter the eternal battlefield. Unfortunately, only one person can enter the eternal battlefield every 50,000 years, so the competition is fierce every time. Only one person for 50,000 years. Nanshan Wanjiao is still quite curious. Although he is also worried about Wu Yu, it is already destined that Wu Yu will be imprisoned in the demonic battlefield, so it is useless for him to worry. Knowing everything about Patriarch Bodhi will be helpful to the situation." "Good." Xuexing Emperor Immortal said seriously, "Because the Patriarch had no heirs, he gave up opportunities to others. Because of this, the Patriarch's status in heaven is transcendent and deeply respected by all Emperor Immortals. For nearly tens of millions of years, due to there were too many emperors and immortals asking for gifts and visits. The ancestor also found it troublesome, so he set up a rule not to accept gifts, but to give the juniors a chance to compete fairly on the eternal battlefield. It's the Emperor's trial. This Emperor Immortal trial must be difficult, right?" Yezixi tilted her head and asked, "Because this is an excellent opportunity to become an immortal emperor. The descendants of those top emperors will definitely come to compete. Only one person can be chosen among them. Most people have no chance at all." "Good." Emperor Xuexing nodded. "The participants in this Emperor Immortal trial are basically the top geniuses among the Nine Heavens Immortal Kings. Many of them are descendants of the top Emperor Immortals, such as the descendants of Erlang Shen. They will come here compete for this spot. Once you get the opportunity to enter the eternal battlefield, you can break through the realm of the immortal emperor and achieve immortality in one step. By the way, Wu Yu, do you know when the next emperor immortal trial to compete for a spot in the eternal battlefield will be? After Emperor Xuexing finished explaining, he asked Wu Yu again. Naturally, Wu Yu could only shake his head. Emperor Xuexing smiled, lowered his voice and said, "That's 10,000 years from now. But for you, junior brother, the most important thing is to consider the issue of the demon. Anyway, senior brother, I have never seen anyone who can be inside 10,000 years, you can still come out alive." Wu Yu is in a serious mood now. Although he looks relaxed on the surface, he is actually a little afraid of the demon battlefield in his heart. According to what others said, whether it was the reaction of Emperor Xuexing or the other emperors at the time of the announcement, it can be seen that the Tai Chi Wheel and the heavenly demon battlefield are so powerful that ordinary people cannot withstand them. This was definitely a severe punishment, but Patriarch Bodhi used it specifically to target Wu Yu, which made Wu Yu a little confused. I've said all that needs to be said. Junior brother Wu Yu, you will have a good rest for the next 3 days and adjust your condition to the best. After entering the demonic battlefield, you will have to rely on yourself for everything. Emperor Juxing patted Wu Yu's shoulder and said solemnly. For him, he also likes Wu Yu, a new junior disciple. After all, a genius who can defeat the immortal emperor immortal in the 9 heavens immortal king realm is very rare in the entire heaven. Even if there are, they are the descendants of those top emperor immortals. How could an ordinary immortal have such strength? The descendants of top-level emperor immortals mostly rely on external forces such as era artifacts to have the strength to compete with the eternal emperor immortal. It is not impossible to even defeat the eternal emperor immortal. Their conditions are really good. Senior brother, don't worry. I will do my best after entering the demon battlefield. Wu Yu also said solemnly. Emperor Xuexing nodded with satisfaction. He was quite optimistic about Wu Yu. I hope to see you come out of the demonic battlefield in 10,000 years. I'll say goodbye now. Brother, walk slowly. Wu Yu nodded. Xuexing Emperor Xian came to tell Wu Yu this news, which was very important to him. At least he had a preliminary impression of what he was about to face and was mentally prepared. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Brother Yu. What should I do? You must not be eaten by those demons in there. Yezixi's eyes were blurred with tears, and she was very nervous and worried, fearing that Wu Yu would never see him again after he left. Don't worry. Wu Yu turned around and said to the 3 people solemnly, during my absence, you should not walk around, practice well, and wait for me to come out of the demon battlefield. Isn't it just 10,000 years? The demon battlefield is nothing. No matter what, the worries in everyone's hearts can never be stopped. Wu Yu had no choice. During these 3 days, he had to adjust his mentality first, but the closer he got to that day, the more anxious he became. Because during these 3 days, he heard many rumors again. There were too many people discussing the horror of the heavenly demon battlefield. No one had ever survived after entering the heavenly demon battlefield for 10,000 years. These rumors made Wu Yu feel a little difficult to calm down. So he simply closed his eyes on the last day, staying in his palace, thinking nothing and quietly waiting for time to pass. While he was in seclusion, many emperors and immortals came to the 3 stars cave of the slanting moon. These guests, of course, came for the death of Mo Lion. First, the emperors and immortals of the heavenly court headed by Erlang Zhenshen, followed by the 4 heavenly kings of the mighty god, and the important emperors and immortals of the giant spirit clan, all came. The 4 heavenly kings were the heavenly king of holding the country, the heavenly king of growth, the heavenly king of many wisdom, and the heavenly king of broad eyes. They were so aggressive that the evil spirits emanating from them made the surrounding emperors and immortals retreat and dared not talk to them at all. The one who died this time was an important figure of the 4 heavenly kings, Amo Lion, the younger brother of the heavenly king of holding the country, Amo Lihe. Although Amo Lion's achievements are not too high and he can only be said to be at the bottom among the emperors, any emperor is a precious treasure, not only for the heavenly court, but also for the four heavenly kings. Following behind Erlang Zhenshen, each of the four heavenly kings came to the Three Stars Cave with anger on their faces, obviously to ask for an explanation from Amo Lion. In addition to these emperors of the heavenly court, there are even some hidden in the dark. These beings are ghosts and gods from hell. These ghosts and gods cannot show up in the heavenly court, but they are all very sensitive to Wu Yu's affairs. Originally, when they heard that Wu Yu had become a disciple of Bodhi Patriarch, they basically gave up the action of revenge against Wu Yu. But unexpectedly, after only 100 years, Wu Yu actually committed suicide and killed Amo Lion, who was also a disciple of Bodhi Patriarch. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Erlang Zhenshen led many emperors and immortals to come aggressively, and he must give an explanation to Bodhi Patriarch. Even Bodhi Patriarch could not protect such an act that violated the rules of heaven and killed the emperor. This is the rule of heaven, not Bodhi Patriarch alone. Although Bodhi Patriarch is highly respected, Erlang Zhenshen will definitely argue for principled issues. So, the ghosts and gods from hell, Judge Wang Xuan, the lord of the heavenly palace of Taisha Liangshizong, and the emperor of Fengdu in Bian, hid in the dark and observed every move in the Ziyu Sangzing cave. I hope that this time, when Erlang Shen brings people to force the palace, he can teach that little bastard a lesson and finally bring him to justice, Judge Wang Xuan said viciously. Yes, this kid was showing off in our hell back then. This time, he finally hit the wall. I want to see if Bodhi Patriarch will protect him this time. Although the northern Yin Fengdu emperor was hiding in the dark, his aura was still terrifying, awe-inspiring and frightening. There were even many emperors who were curious and came to watch the forcing the palace drama happening in the Ziyu Sangzing cave. Wu Yu has stirred up too much trouble in the heavenly court recently, so many emperors have heard of this name. This time, he even killed a dignified immortal emperor. They want to see how this matter will end. Erlang Zhenshen was shining brightly, as if he was the only venerable in heaven and earth. He came on the clouds with a serious expression and awe-inspiring without anger. Behind him, the four heavenly kings each held an epic artifact, and their eyes were full of anger. The giant spirit clan also gathered together, with a huge momentum, and each of them was fierce and evil, and they came with bad intentions. Outside the fairy palace of Ziyu Sangzing cave, Erlang Shen stopped and looked into the fairy palace from afar with a hint of indifference in his eyes. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1674. Erlang Zhenshen brought people to the outside of the Ziyu Sangzing cave immortal mansion, and all the emperors and immortals had cold faces. Immortal Wu Yu killed Amo Lion in Fangkuntian and committed a serious crime according to the heavenly rules. We have come to capture him. Please help us, Master Bodhi, and don't make things difficult for us. Erlang Zhenshen said loudly, and his voice was full of majesty, almost spreading throughout the entire Fangkuntian, so that all the immortals in Fangkuntian could hear it. With his strength, if he opened the third eye, he could completely imprison the entire Fangkuntian, but he didn't dare to mess around in Master Bodhi's territory, so he could only list Wu Yu's crimes first to put some pressure on Master Bodhi to let him release him. As long as Master Bodhi handed Wu Yu over, they would leave immediately. After all, no one wanted to offend Master Bodhi. In the eyes of Erlang Shen and his disciples, even if Bodhi Patriarch accepted Wu Yu as his disciple, he should not protect him too much. You know, the demon lion killed by Wu Yu this time is also a disciple of Bodhi Patriarch. Even for the sake of fairness and justice, Bodhi Patriarch could not protect Wu Yu to the death, which would be unfair to other disciples. However, when Erlang Shen was counting Wu Yu's crimes, Bodhi Patriarch stepped on the clouds and came out of the Xianfu of the Three Stars Cave of the Slanting Moon. He smiled lightly and said, Erlang Zhenjun, don't be angry. This is a matter of my section. I have already punished Wu Yu and will lock him up in the Tai Chi wheel for 10,000 years to be devoured by the demon in the heavenly demon battlefield. Originally, this decision was only known to Bodhi Patriarch's sect. But now that he said this, the emperors and ghosts who were observing all this were all surprised. Tai Chi wheel, they naturally knew what kind of existence it was. The Tai Chi wheel is divided into two sides, black and white. The white eternal battlefield has one quota every 50,000 years. If you enter it, you will have a great chance to become an immortal emperor. The black demon battlefield is rarely paid attention to, but whenever some extremely serious criminals are caught by Bodhi Patriarch, they will be imprisoned in the demon battlefield. Basically, those who are imprisoned in the demon battlefield are only imprisoned for 100 or 1,000 years. Even if an immortal emperor is imprisoned in the demon battlefield, he will die in 1,000 years. So far, only a few emperors with extremely strong mental will can come out after being imprisoned for hundreds of years. Even so, their mental state becomes very trance after coming out. They suffer countless tortures in it, making them live worse than death, and there is no possibility of any progress in the immortal path. And now, Bodhi Patriarch said that he would imprison Wu Yu in the demon battlefield for 10,000 years. To other emperors, this basically means that Wu Yu must die in it. Even Erlang Zhenshen and his people were now somewhat moved. The heavenly demon battlefield of the Taiji wheel is even more terrifying than my evil spirit abyss. 10,000 years in there will result in death, King Chiguo said to the other three heavenly kings in private, somewhat shocked. I didn't expect that Patriarch Bodhi would punish him so severely. I thought he would find a way to protect that kid. King Guangmu was originally furious, but now he was shocked. He didn't expect Patriarch Bodhi to be so cruel. The Juling God clan also began to whisper and constantly discussed about the heavenly demon battlefield. Basically, they are all old-fashioned emperors, so they must have heard of the heavenly demon battlefield, and their impression of it is not shallow. After all, it is a very scary thing in the entire heaven. If you want to punish a sinner, imprisoning him in the heavenly demon battlefield is almost the heaviest punishment. Not to mention that Wu Yu has not yet reached the realm of the immortal emperor, and there are still immortals in his body. Compared with the immortal emperor, the gods of all things in the demonic battlefield like to bite the immortals, and even bite the immortals to pieces. This is a devastating blow to a god who has not yet reached the immortal emperor. The ghosts and gods hiding in the dark are now all shocked. This Bodhi Patriarch would actually punish like this. If what he said is true, Wu Yu is finished. The expression of the Tiangong master of Taisha Liangshi sect was full of surprise. However, if Erlang Shen and the others are smart, they must ask for seeing it with their own eyes. Bian Fengdu Emperor said coldly. Yes, everyone can say it like this. What if Wu Yu is not punished behind the scenes? We don't know. Judge Wang Sun nodded and continued to pay attention to the situation in the field. As expected, when the immortal emperors and demons in hell were discussing this matter, Erlang Shen in front of them also had a serious face. The ancestor is very righteous. Such a punishment is indeed a suitable punishment for Wu Yu, which can make him deeply aware of the mistakes he has made. Thank you for giving us an explanation. Since we are all here today, why don't you put Wu Yu in the heavenly demon battlefield today? How about it? He also wanted to see it with his own eyes, fearing that Bodhi Patriarch was lying to him. Of course, he didn't dare to say it clearly. You have to know what kind of status Bodhi Patriarch has. How could he lie? Since he said that Wu Yu would be imprisoned in the heavenly demon battlefield for 10,000 years, he would definitely do it. It's just that Erlang Shen and the others need to confirm it no matter what, only in this way can they feel at ease. Bodhi Patriarch naturally knew what they were thinking, smiled lightly, and waved his hand. Okay, you just watch. In front of his grey robe, a round millstone in the shape of Tai Chi suddenly appeared. The millstone was black and white. The white part exuded a pleasant fairy spirit and gave off a comfortable feeling. This chapter has not ended yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. The black part was extremely deep and dark, exuding a terrifying breath, as if there were endless terrifying things in the black part. The black and white parts were the eternal battlefield and the demon battlefield. As soon as the Tai Chi wheel appeared, it attracted the attention of all the emperors in the field. It was this thing that made Bodhi Patriarch one of the most respected emperors in the heavenly court. In the eternal battlefield, the spirit of all things eternity can make the fairy king achieve the realm of emperors. In the demon battlefield, the spirit of all things demon born in it can devour human immortals and make people live worse than death, making countless emperors terrified. This is the Tai Chi wheel. Then, many immortals in the field saw Wu Yu, who was walking towards Bodhi Patriarch with a solemn expression. At this time, Wu Yu was brought here by Bodhi Patriarch. Take care. After bringing Wu Yu here, Xuexing Emperor Immortal patted Wu Yu on the shoulder and said in a low voice, with some tension and worry in his voice. There is no doubt that even if he felt the same as Wu Yu and felt that Bodhi Patriarch would not harm Wu Yu, he was still very nervous now. After all, the battlefield of the demons was too scary. When Wu Yu appeared, Erlang Shen's expression did not change, he was still indifferent and serious. As for the four heavenly kings behind him, and the emperors of the giant spirit clan, they all gnashed their teeth. They really hated this Wu Yu. Especially the heavenly king Dhritarashtra among the four heavenly kings. When Mo Lion died, through the blood connection, he saw with his own eyes the scene of his brother, Mo Lion, being killed by Wu Yu with a stick of the epical artifact. The body was torn into pieces, was sucked into the vortex of the void, and lost his life in the golden light. At that time, he was furious and wanted to kill Wu Yu with his own hands. Now seeing Wu Yu, he wanted to kill Wu Yu on the spot immediately. But facing Bodhi Patriarch, of course he didn't dare to do so, not to mention that even if he wanted to do so, he would not succeed. At this time, the heavenly king Dhritarashtra felt a little regretful. If he knew from the beginning that Wu Yu actually had such a terrifying fighting power, he would never let Mo Lion easily provoke Wu Yu, but now it was too late for him to regret. He could only let Wu Yu pay with blood. 10,000 years in the heavenly demon battlefield is unbearable even for this heavenly king, not to mention this young man who has not even reached the level of an emperor immortal. The heavenly king Chiguo snorted coldly, and looked at Wu Yu from afar, with a look of hatred in his eyes. Disciple Wu Yu, be punished. Bodhi Patriarch said solemnly, and then raised his hand, and saw the Tai Chi wheel spinning, and the black part of the heavenly demon battlefield continued to expand in Wu Yu's eyes. Wu Yu only felt that his surroundings suddenly became dark, and the Emperor Immortal, Bodhi Patriarch, and Erlang Zhenshen all disappeared in the next moment, and even the original noisy sounds disappeared completely, and the surroundings became completely dark, without a trace of light, and without a trace of sound. The heavenly demon battlefield, he finally came in. At the entrance of the Three Stars Cave of the Slanting Moon, the Emperor Immortals watched Wu Yu being taken into the heavenly demon battlefield, and then they all breathed a sigh of relief, some worried, and some happy. The four heavenly kings all showed a happy look on their faces. After all, seeing Wu Yu being sent to the heavenly demon battlefield was quite good for them. This punishment was even more satisfying than handing Wu Yu over to them. After all, if they punished Wu Yu themselves, it would be at most the level of the evil spirit abyss, or they would kill Wu Yu directly. Compared with the heavenly demon battlefield, it was nothing at all. Nothing can be more painful than the heavenly demon battlefield. Wu Yu disappeared from the scene. Everyone knew that he had arrived at the heavenly demon battlefield. Bodhi Patriarch punished him so harshly that the emperors around him were all moved. They thought that Bodhi Patriarch also didn't care about the relationship between master and apprentice at all. That's right. After all, that kid has only been a disciple for 100 years. If there is any affection, it is definitely not as good as MO-Lions. Many emperors and immortals talked about it privately. Originally, they all thought that Bodhi Patriarch's punishment was too severe, but now they think that this punishment is normal. It was not until this time that the expressions of Erlang Shen, the four heavenly kings and the emperors of the giant spirit clan began to improve. They were no longer as angry as before. After all, even they did not dare to enter the heavenly demon battlefield, let alone a mere Wu Yu. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1675. Wu Yu had disappeared from the scene. He had arrived at the heavenly demon battlefield, and many people outside were even ready to forget him. After all, after being in the heavenly demon battlefield for 10,000 years, how could Wu Yu, who was only at the 9 heavens immortal king level, come out alive? No matter how much they thought highly of Wu Yu, they didn't think that Wu Yu had a chance to survive. Erlang Shen, the four heavenly kings, and the emperor immortals of the giant spirit clan were all relieved. Seeing them like this, Bodhi Patriarch smiled slightly. Everyone, Wu Yu has been sent to the heavenly demon battlefield. It will be impossible for him to come out in less than 10,000 years. You all know how terrible the heavenly demon battlefield is. After this punishment, can you write off your previous grievances with Wu Yu? This time, it was mainly the four heavenly kings who looked at each other. They saw Wu Yu being sent to the heavenly demon battlefield with their own eyes. Logically speaking, Wu Yu could not survive this time, and it didn't matter if the previous grievances were written off, but they always felt that there might be something fishy about this matter. What if, just say what if Wu Yu came out of the heavenly demon battlefield, but they were now unable to attack Wu Yu and avenge MO-Lion because they had promised Bodhi Patriarch, what should they do? So the emperor immortals such as Chiguo Tianhuang looked embarrassed and seemed not to agree. Chiguo Tianhuang thought for a while and said in a deep voice, "Ancestor, even if he entered the heavenly demon battlefield, we can't forget the previous grievances. I hope you don't make things difficult for us." Bodhi Patriarch was not angry, but still smiled slightly. He just reminded them, the eternal battlefield will be opened in 10,000 years. Shouldn't you focus on it? As soon as these words came out, Erlang Zhenshen was the first to move. He made a color to Chiguo Tianhuang and others, obviously reminding them not to forget what is really important. The eternal battlefield is where their younger generations can enter after passing the Emperor Immortal trial. Once they get that opportunity, they will have the opportunity to enter the realm of the Eternal Emperor Immortal. This is an opportunity that only comes once in 50,000 years, and there is only one opportunity each time. If they miss this time, they don't know what other opponents will participate in the Emperor Immortal trial next time. Now the request made by Bodhi Patriarch is just to write off the grudges between them and Wu Yu. Now Wu Yu has been sent to the heavenly demon battlefield, and the chance of him coming out alive is too slim. So, let's write off the grudges. If Wu Yu can come out, there will be other ways to deal with him. There is no need to make enemies with Bodhi Patriarch for this. Erlang Zhenshen and the four heavenly kings are all emperor immortals who have lived for an infinitely long time. So Erlang Shen gave a look, and the four heavenly kings all understood. So they nodded one after another, and the heavenly king Chiguo could only set an example and said, "That's right. The eternal battlefield is about to open, and we will not pursue the matter about Wu Yu. After all, the punishment that the Patriarch has given him is severe enough." When these words were said, the three words "no pursuit" meant that the grudges between them and Wu Yu were absolutely written off on the surface. Even if Wu Yu came out of the heavenly demon battlefield 10,000 years later, they would not openly do anything to Wu Yu. Those things in the past were still minor. With the pressure from Bodhi Patriarch, they did not dare to do anything to Wu Yu. It was just that the killing of the Emperor Demon Li Yin this time made things a bit big, which made the four heavenly kings indignant and wanted to arrest Wu Yu. But this matter, under the terror of the heavenly demon battlefield, all turned into bubbles. No one pursued Wu Yu's affairs anymore, and they didn't even mention it. Next, the attention of the Emperor Immortals was shifted by Bodhi Patriarch to the eternal battlefield and the Emperor Immortal trial. Seeing that the four heavenly kings had compromised, Bodhi Patriarch nodded with satisfaction, and said to Erlang Shen, by the way, Erlang Zhenjun, I heard that your youngest son Yang Jian is about to break through to the Emperor Immortal realm. In the Emperor Immortal trial 10,000 years later, I guess no one can compete with him. At that time, this eternal battlefield will be prepared for him. These words made Erlang Zhenshen smile. His name is Yang Jian, and now he has a son, Yang Jian, who is about to break through to the realm of Emperor Immortal. The opening of the eternal battlefield is a good opportunity, so he respects Bodhi Patriarch so much. After all, the eternal battlefield is in the hands of Bodhi Patriarch. Bodhi Patriarch is willing to take out the epic artifact Tai Chi Will and provide others with the opportunity to enter the eternal battlefield. Other Emperor Immortals all respect him very much. After all, if it were them, they would probably be too late to hide it, so how could they openly offer it to other people in the entire heavenly court to compete? Therefore, even Erlang Shen Yang Jian respects Bodhi Patriarch very much. Hearing Bodhi Patriarch mention his son Yang Jian, Erlang Zhenshen Yang Jian was obviously a little complacent. He was very confident in his son, but he still said modestly, no, there are many descendants of emperors in the same realm, all of whom are quite good and powerful. For example, the son of the great Emperor Donghua and the daughter of Xianling Domu Yuanzun are both very good. Yang Jian, that useless boy, may not be their opponent. Yes, I heard that the son of the three altars Sea Assembly God Neza will also participate in this emperor trial. It is really a gathering of strong people. Chiguo Tianwang said something on the side, which made many emperors around change color. Neza, the great god of the three altars and Sea Assembly, is also a very powerful existence in the heavenly court, with a transcendent status, especially his father, Li Jing, the heavenly king of the tower, whose status in the heavenly court far exceeds that of the four heavenly kings, and is comparable to that of Erlang Zhenshen. This chapter is not yet finished. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content below. Neza's son, that is, Li Jing's grandson, must have received excellent training. If he also wants to participate in this Emperor Immortal trial, then other ordinary Emperor Immortals really have no chance. Emperor Donghua, Xianling Domu Yuanzun, Heavenly King of the Tower, Li, and Erlang Zhenjun, so many descendants of top Emperor Immortals are going to participate. It is really not easy to stand out in this Emperor Immortal trial. Xuexing Emperor Immortal thought to himself, frowned slightly, and shook his head. Anyway, this has nothing to do with him. At most, when he walks in the heavenly court in the future, there will be one more person to pay attention to. The winner of this Emperor Immortal trial will have the opportunity to enter the eternal battlefield. When he comes out of the eternal battlefield, he will be a new Emperor Immortal. With their powerful background forces, he is definitely an existence that cannot be provoked. Therefore, Xuexing Emperor Immortal still needs to pay attention to who is the winner of this Emperor Immortal trial. If you don't become an Emperor Immortal, you will never be able to come to the stage. In the heavenly court, once you become an Emperor Immortal, you have a certain status, and others will truly respect you from the bottom of their hearts. Otherwise, if you can only rely on the ancestors of the family, others will not say anything good even if they are respectful on the surface. Speaking of the grandson of the heavenly King Li, Erlang Shen Yang Jian's face is also a little solemn. Obviously, he has a certain understanding of him. He is definitely a strong competitor of his son Yang Jian. But no matter what, there are still 10,000 years before this Emperor Immortal trial, and he still has enough time to prepare. For him, he values his rare son very much. This Emperor Immortal trial is an excellent opportunity. If he steps into the Emperor Immortal and becomes immortal, he can make his father and son live forever. In this way, his son Yang Jian can become his true right-hand man. However, Wu Yu didn't know about these later conversations, the eternal battlefield, and many things about the Emperor Immortal's descendants. Because he has now been sent to the heavenly demon battlefield, his body is surrounded by darkness. He seems to have come to a space of eternal nothingness in the universe, without any light, no sound, and even no direction. Everything is silent, as if time and space have stopped here. An indescribable feeling of emptiness spread in Wu Yu's heart. He wanted to try to move in this empty space, but no matter how he moved, he felt that his position did not change at all. After trying for a long time, he still stayed at the original point, and there was always a state of nothingness around him. This is the battlefield of the demons. Wu Yu felt a little empty in his heart. This space was too empty. There was no light or sound. He had never been to such a strange place before. He couldn't even feel the passage of time in this space, which made him not know how long he had been here. Just after he tried hard for a while and tried to move his position to no avail, a heart-wrenching pain suddenly came from his body. It was a severe pain of being bitten by a fairy god, which made his whole mind tremble and his whole body tremble. He was sweating all over. Although it was only once, it was that one time. I don't know what bit his fairy god, which made his soul tremble. Is this the demon? Wu Yu clenched his teeth. He felt that his fairy god was bitten by something. Although the thing didn't bite off anything on the fairy god, it made his fairy god feel extremely painful. This pain went deep into the soul, far exceeding the pain of the flesh and spirit. Even Wu Yu had never experienced this type of pain before. This kind of pain was simply unstoppable. It suddenly made him fall into the abyss. The demons were silent and these gods of all things liked to bite the gods. Wu Yu knew this before entering the battlefield of the demons. But he didn't expect that this bite of the gods would bring such severe pain, far exceeding the many pains he had experienced before. The thousands of cuts on the flesh were not as painful as the soul of the gods being torn apart. At the beginning, the frequency of the demons' bites was not high, which could give Wu Yu a certain amount of time to ease, but as time passed, it seemed that more and more demons gathered around him, and the severe pain of the gods being bitten became more and more frequent, and even continuous. Every moment, there were demons biting his gods. This made him grit his teeth tightly. Under the endless pain, his body curled up into a ball, but it was useless. He was still trembling in pain from the demons' bites. Gradually, he thought of the exorcism technique, which seemed to be somewhat effective against the spirits of all things. Thinking of this, he immediately performed the exorcism technique and blasted it towards the direction where his immortal god was. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1676. The exorcism technique hit those silent gods and demons, and it seemed to have some effect. Wu Yu felt that the frequency of the bites of the gods in his body seemed to have slowed down a bit, and the pain at the soul level was also relieved a lot, which made him feel better. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, he felt more bites from the demons where his gods were. The piercing pain made him sweat all over his body, his eyes widened, and his whole body was twitching in pain. Exorcism technique. He gritted his teeth and continued to use the exorcism technique to dispel the gods and demons near his gods, but the effect of the exorcism technique became weaker and weaker. At first, it could make him feel better for a while. But as time passed, the effect of his exorcism technique became worse and worse, and he would even be resisted by the gods and demons, which further stimulated their ferocity, making their bites more fierce and the pain more intense. Wu Yu realized that if he kept using the exorcism technique, he would not be able to last for 10,000 years. He didn't know how long it had been, but it was obvious that the demons had just started biting, so it must have been a short time ago. Although the exorcism technique could temporarily drive them away, it would be followed by even more fierce bites. It seemed that the exorcism technique could not eliminate the demons, and the demons of the gods and spirits of all things that had been bombarded by the exorcism technique would bite him more fiercely, making it even more difficult for him to bear. Getting worse. Wu Yu thought of this word, but now he had almost no other thoughts in his mind except pain and holding on. Because he could feel that the number of demons of the gods and spirits of all things surrounding his immortal god was increasing. In this empty demon battlefield, the number of demons seemed to be endless. His immortal god was bitten more and more frequently, and he could be bitten hundreds of times in almost every breath. In fact, this frequency continued to accelerate. The bites of these demons made Wu Yu extremely painful, but in fact, his immortal god did not suffer any substantial damage. Of course, this was just the beginning. As the frequency of the demon's bites increased, the speed at which his immortal god was destroyed by the bites also increased. The extreme pain did not stop at all, and there was no end. Wu Yu could only grit his teeth and endure it. He did not even have any way to resist. The only way to drive away the gods was that it would not allow him to last for 10,000 years. It would even make the demons worse, and the more violent the bites would be, the more unbearable it would be. Damn it! How could there be such terrible gods in the world? Wu Yu was a little desperate. The endless pain made him unable to think of anything in his mind. He could only tell himself that he must hold on. Although 10,000 years was a long time, as long as he could hold on, the pain of 10,000 years would not be a big deal. The number of gods and demons of all things was still increasing endlessly. However, in the process of the immortal god being bitten, Wu Yu's immortal god's strength and mental tenacity became stronger and stronger, and the power from his will seemed to be growing. The strength of his immortal god, will and spirit allowed Wu Yu to face more demon bites, but the speed at which the number of demons increased far exceeded the speed at which his immortal god, will and spirit became stronger, which made it difficult for him to bear the demon bites. He felt that many holes had appeared in his immortal god. These holes were very small, not even the size of a needle hole, but under the constant bites of the demons, if 10,000 years passed, these needle hole-sized holes would surely be bitten bigger and bigger. By then, his immortal god might not be able to bear it and would be completely devoured by these gods of all things. Master Bodhi, are you targeting me on purpose? Wu Yu sometimes thought of this possibility, but as soon as he had such an idea in his mind, he immediately denied it. The punishment proposed by Master Bodhi against him should be beneficial to him and a measure to protect him. Otherwise, he saw that at the entrance of the Three Stars Cave of the Slanting Moon, the Emperor Immortals of Erlang Zhenshen, the four heavenly kings and the giant spirit god clan looked like they were going to eat people. If he fell into their hands, Wu Yu was sure that he would be worse off than dead, and he would not have the slightest chance of survival. Now, although he was also in pain, and even the pain at the soul level was more intense than the torture of the evil spirit abyss, at least he still had hope of survival as long as he could hold on for 10,000 years, then Bodhi Patriarch would definitely stop the others. Maybe now, Bodhi Patriarch has already agreed with the four heavenly kings and the others that everything is written off. Then, as long as I can get out alive, as long as, alive. Wu Yu's willpower became more and more firm, and the occasional doubts he had about Bodhi Patriarch quickly dissipated. The firmness of his willpower made him more and more able to endure pain, which enabled him to withstand more intense bites from the demons. However, in this battlefield of demons, the number of demons was so large that he could hardly imagine it. It was simply endless, which made Wu Yu's scalp numb. Although he could not see these silent gods of all things, he could feel that his immortal god was bitten more and more, and faster and faster. There were basically thousands of bites every moment, which made him more and more unbearable. When the pain reached the extreme, he could only attack his own body, hoping that the pain in his body could distract him. At the beginning, This trick had some effect, allowing Wu Yu to slightly shift his attention to the pain in his body. The pain in his body was bearable for Wu Yu. After all, he had cultivated to the eternal Vajra immortality realm, and his Vajra indestructible body was close to perfection. He kept cutting his flesh and blood with the gold and fire heavenly rules, so that he was always in the pain of his body. But as time passed, he didn't know how long it had been. The demons biting his immortal god reached tens of thousands of times in every breath. At this point, even the pain in his body could not help him share the slightest pain. He seemed to have his entire spirit and soul torn apart. Tens of thousands of bites in every breath made his immortal god seem like being bitten by ants, and it had become riddled with holes. This kind of torture is the torture of the soul. If it were someone else, they would have given up long ago. The bite of the demons is too terrifying. Even if they can hold on now, there will be more demons coming in the future. What's more, Wu Yu will be imprisoned in the demon battlefield for 10,000 years. How can he hold on for such a long time? Even if the emperor is here, he can't bear such pain. The triple pain of spirit, soul, and body almost makes Wu Yu collapse. Endless pain almost tore Wu Yu's spirit apart. He has now curled up and drifted in the void space of the demon battlefield, allowing the gods and demons of all things to bite and destroy his immortals. For ordinary people, this is a heart-piercing pain. Now Wu Yu has to experience it thousands of times every breath. Wu Yu can't imagine how he can spend 10,000 years in this demon battlefield. How can he do it? Even if he can do it, he will be a useless person by then. During this time, Wu Yu could only rely on his thoughts about his friends to keep himself going. He kept thinking about Luo Bin, knowing that the beauty was still waiting for his return. 10,000 years might be extremely difficult for him, but it might be even more difficult for Luo Bin who missed him. He at least knew his condition. Even if he couldn't hold on, he knew it in his heart, but Luo Bin knew nothing about his condition. Was Wu Yu in pain? Could Wu Yu come out alive? Everything was a mystery. Luo Bin had no way of knowing his condition inside, so that kind of worry was a worry about the unknown, and also a fear of the unknown. Nanshan Wanjiao, Yezixi. Wu Yu kept thinking about these close friends. Only in this way could he reduce his attention to the pain a little. Once he stopped thinking about it, the endless pain might immediately swallow him up and make him collapse immediately. His spirit gradually dimmed under the bite of the gods and demons of all things. This was because his willpower could no longer support it. Some things really can't be solved by willpower alone. Wu Yu has suffered too much pain, but the pain of the demon biting in front of him is really unbearable. At this time, he probably suffered hundreds of thousands of times in every breath. This kind of pain of being bitten by the demon is enough for ordinary immortals in the outside world to remember it for a lifetime, even if it is only once. But now, Wu Yu is experiencing such pain every breath. The same pain may become numb after experiencing it too many times. However, the pain of the demon biting the immortal is a gradually increasing pain, because the number of demons gathering is increasing, so the pain is getting more and more intense. Wu Yu just got familiar with a certain degree of pain, and the next moment the pain is more intense. In this case, his mental will is impossible to reach the state of numbness. Those gods and demons of all things are completely tireless. It seems that the immortal is the most attractive thing in the world, making them bite non-stop. The invisible and breathless gods of all things, now no one knows how many demons have gathered around Wu Yu's immortal god. Their bites make Wu Yu's spirit more and more dim, making it more and more difficult for him to bear. Endless pain constantly stimulates his nerves, making him stay awake at all times, and always able to clearly feel the heart-piercing pain. He couldn't even faint. This reminded Wu Yu of the evil spirit abyss, the epic artifact of the king of the heavenly king, where he was once imprisoned for a period of time. The bites of the evil spirits in it also made him suffer, but compared with the bites of the demons in this demon battlefield, he would rather endure the pain of the evil spirit abyss. Sometimes Wu Yu even thought that it would be better to hand him over to the king of the heavenly king and let him endure the pain of the evil spirit abyss instead of experiencing such pain. For Bodhi Patriarch, Wu Yu no longer firmly believed that he was helping himself. This demon battlefield is so terrifying, Bodhi Patriarch cannot be unaware of it. Did he deliberately want to make himself suffer so much? Wu Yu began to doubt more than once. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1677. The endless pain, the immortal being bitten by the demon of all things, made Wu Yu's spirit more and more dim. He could only rely on his constant thoughts for Luo Bin and other friends to maintain his will and barely hold on. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. The bite of the demon of all things on his immortal was still becoming more and more intense, making him unable to relax for a moment. Until now, he didn't know how long he had been in the battlefield of the demon. In this directionless void, even time has become a vague concept. Even if he has comprehended the time-speed change rules, it is useless at this moment. His fighting spirit continued to decline in the barely holding on, and he didn't know how many years had passed. He only felt that there were millions of bites from the demon on his immortal every moment, which was simply painful. The pain of being bitten by the immortals and gods made his soul suffer endless torture, and he even wanted to give up countless times. He barely held on until now because he thought that there were still many people waiting for him outside, but at this time, willpower could not play a decisive role. The bites of the gods and demons seemed to make his whole body broken, and he was experiencing the feeling of being broken every moment. On the verge of death. Am I going to die like this in the battlefield of the demons? Wu Yu was now discouraged and almost gave up. He really couldn't hold on. The endless pain every moment had no end at all, and he didn't know when it would end. However, at this last moment, he thought of something, that is, the Ruyi Jinggubang. At the last moment, he held the Ruyi Jinggubang in his hand. Anyway, there was no hope. Let's see if this Ruyi Jinggubang can help him. At the beginning, even if the Ruyi Jinggubang was in his hand, Wu Yu didn't think there was anything special. The immortal god in his body was still being bitten by countless demons, and he was constantly experiencing unbearable and severe pain. But holding the Ruyi Jinggubang tightly, Wu Yu slowly seemed to feel the spirit and fighting spirit from the Monkey King. He recalled the scene he saw on the stone tablet at that time. Even though countless emperors of heaven and countless ghosts of hell besieged him, the Monkey King was still brave and invincible, sweeping across the four directions. That was a will that would not yield no matter what. The Ruyi Jinggubang was the epic artifact of the Monkey King. There was a certain breath from the Monkey King on it, which gradually infected Wu Yu. In the endless pain of the immortal god being bitten, this infection was like a sweet source, allowing Wu Yu to slowly transcend from the pain. His immortal god was still bitten and painful, but his spirit and will were better than before. He no longer endured this pain, but imagined this pain as a kind of tempering. As long as he went through this tempering, he could get real sublimation and transformation. This is a process of becoming stronger. Originally, Wu Yu really had no idea about the battlefield of the demons, thinking that it was just a place of punishment. But now, he felt that his mental willpower was indeed constantly increasing, but the growth was not so rapid, and he could not catch up with the increase in the number of demons of all things, so his willpower became weaker and weaker, and his fighting spirit became more and more eliminated. As long as he could become stronger after experiencing pain, it was meaningful pain, and Wu Yu would have more motivation to persist. At this moment, a new power seemed to burst out in Wu Yu's heart, which made him no longer obsessed with the pain he suffered, but focused on his stronger spirit and willpower. In this way, he continued to persist miraculously, and his mental state was getting better and better. He felt that a spirit of indomitable and resistance came from the Ruyi Jinggubang, even if he was bitten by billions of demons, so what? He began to visualize the monkey in his heart. The golden war ape grew infinitely in his heart, which made his own spirit, will and immortal gods grow continuously. This growth seemed to have no end, as if it expanded into a boundless world, allowing Wu Yu to faintly touch the edge of eternal life at this moment. Is this the realm of eternal life? Wu Yu seemed to see the hurdle in front of him. As long as he crossed that hurdle, he could step into the realm of immortal emperors that all the immortals yearned for. At this time, Wu Yu seemed to feel the feeling of the boundless world in his body, and then his immortal god suddenly shattered and disappeared from his body, as if they were integrated into an invisible world. Although this world is invisible, Wu Yu can be sure that it is in his body, and the power of the 9 heavenly rules still exists. This made Wu Yu a little puzzled. His body almost turned into an eternal world, but the immortal gods shattered first. Under the bite of billions of demons, he did not perish, but took the most critical step from the immortal king to the emperor immortal. But his current state is a bit strange. It's like my spirit and immortals have entered the eternal realm earlier, but my body has not yet entered the step. In other words, now I have half entered the realm of the immortal emperor, and the remaining part of my body has not achieved the eternal and endless world Wu Yu guessed. And this step seemed to awaken something for Wu Yu. His immortal god was able to enter eternity under the bite of the demons of all things. If he had not experienced such pain, or if he could not hold on in such pain, he would never have come to this point. The demons bit his immortal god and shattered it, but they did not destroy it, but made it stronger. Wu Yu only realized now that the battlefield of demons was actually helping him to achieve the realm of immortality faster. Although the process was extremely painful and even made him almost unable to hold on, there was no doubt that he felt the intention of Bodhi Patriarch. This was a means of using superficial punishment to help him. And after he went out, Bodhi Patriarch should write off all the previous grievances. In other words, the 4 heavenly kings and Erlang Shen's group could no longer use the fact that he killed the emperor immortal demon Li Yin as an excuse. After all, the punishment for this matter was to be imprisoned in the battlefield of demons. With Bodhi Patriarch in charge, as long as the other party agreed to this result, there was no room for regret. Wu Yu now felt that his immortal god had been constantly bitten by the demons and had turned into an invisible eternal world. He could not see this world, but it really existed in his body, together with the power of the 9 heavenly rules. After biting and crushing his immortal god, the demons of all things seemed to have no interest in him and wandered around. Of course, Wu Yu still could not feel the existence of these demons, but after the immortal god was crushed, he no longer felt the bite of the immortal god. At this moment, Wu Yu's spiritual will was extremely strong, and he even had the illusion that the Monkey King was possessed. Perhaps it was this strong fighting spirit that made the demons flee after crushing the immortal god. Wu Yu did not know the details, but he was sure that he was one step closer to immortality. It took Wu Jun, the ancient immortal dragon, no one knew how many tens of thousands of years from the 9 heavens immortal king to finally taking the step of immortality. Even during this period of time, no new emperor immortal appeared in the entire dragon clan. It can be seen how difficult it is to take this step. Even if Wu Yu kept devouring the corpses of the emperor demons in the eternal emperor burial, it was not easy for him to take this step. He had to devour at least dozens or even hundreds of emperor demon corpses before he could really touch the threshold of this realm. However, now, under the arrangement of Bodhi Patriarch, he has taken the most critical step. This is a punishment in the open, but it is actually a means of help. Even if others are given a chance, they can't do it at all. Wu Yu inherited the spiritual will of the Monkey King. He himself is extremely tenacious. Even so, during the process of the demon biting the immortals, there was a time when he could hardly hold on and wanted to give up, not to mention others. Along the way, Wu Yu dared to say that the pain he suffered in his cultivation was definitely more than any other existence below the Emperor Immortal. Just to cultivate the indestructible body, his flesh had experienced the pain of being cut by thousands of knives. Now that the immortals were bitten, it was even more of an endless pain at the soul level, which was simply unbearable. If it weren't for the Ruyi Jingbang of the Monkey King that gave Wu Yu a little support, allowing him to persevere and finally succeed, he would have died under the bites of the demons, and would not have waited until the immortals were shattered and turned into an invisible eternal world. The demons seemed to have fled from me. Wu Yu sat upright in this dark void. From the time he entered the battlefield of the demons to now, he could not feel the changes and passage of time at all. Even this endless pain seemed to last for tens of thousands of years in his feeling, which was longer than any previous practice and retreat, and he didn't know how many years had passed outside. As long as I get out of the battlefield of the demons, my immortality will be very hopeful, but I don't know how much time has passed outside now. Wu Yu felt the eternal spiritual world in his body, which contained a very strong spirit and will, which would be the basis for him to fight all the way in the future. Shortly after his immortal god was shattered and turned into an invisible eternal world, a ray of light suddenly appeared in front of his eyes, causing him to open his eyes. After staying in the darkness for too long, Wu Yu was still not used to seeing the light, but as soon as he opened his eyes, he threw this discomfort behind his mind. Wu Yu, finally came out. He couldn't help but sigh, but his spirit was still very stable, as if he was an old monk in meditation. He sat upright and was sent out from the battlefield of the demons. 10,000 years had passed, and he seemed to have experienced the precipitation of endless time, making him more stable, and his mentality, spirit, and will were all improved by more than one level. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1678. The 7200th heaven in the heaven, Fang Kun Tian, Xiaoyu Sangxing Cave. Bodhi Patriarch is preaching, and all his disciples are gathered together, listening carefully to the Patriarch's understanding of the Tao. These disciples of Bodhi Patriarch are all in the realm of Emperor Immortals, and Zhuexing Emperor Immortals are only the lowest among them. Many generations of disciples are gathered together. Few people will miss the opportunity of Bodhi Patriarch's preaching, because the Patriarch's preaching can make them gain a lot and let them step into the next level faster. You must know that Bodhi Patriarch is one of the strongest top Emperor Immortals in this heaven. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The Patriarch's preaching ended quickly. Each time he preached, the time was not long, but the content was very exquisite, so that the disciples under his tutelage might not be able to understand it even after studying for a long time. Once you can figure it out, then the realm will be a leap forward, and it is not an exaggeration to describe it as 1,000 miles a day. After the sermon, many disciples started to discuss, because the entire heaven has been quite lively recently. There is only one reason: the eternal battlefield is about to begin. Another 50,000 years have passed. I wonder which young generation will be able to pass the Emperor Immortal trial and get the chance to enter the eternal battlefield. It's hard to say. The competition this time is too fierce. In my opinion, Yang Jian, the son of Erlang Zhenshen, and the son of the Three Altars Sea Assembly Great God, are likely to become the winners of the Emperor Immortal trial. After entering the eternal battlefield, they will transform into new Emperor Immortals. There are other contestants who are not weak either. It's not that there haven't been accidents in the Emperor Immortal trial. In short, this Emperor Immortal trial will be interesting to watch and will definitely be exciting. It's just hard for us. With so many top Emperor Immortals visiting, the task of receiving them falls on us. The task is heavy. Don't say that. It's an honor for us to entertain them. It's not an opportunity for everyone to deal with so many top Emperor Immortals. We must cherish it. Maybe a casual word or two from them can benefit us a lot. That's right. Every Emperor Immortal trial is actually an opportunity for us. No matter what, it's always good to get in touch with those top Emperor Immortals. Many disciples began to discuss. Their daily practice is boring. Although those who can reach the realm of Emperor Immortal can persist, they are definitely looking forward to and interested in exciting things. So when they were discussing, although they complained about the heavy reception tasks, they were still happy in their bones. They were honored to have such a grand event held in the Three Stars Cave of the Slanting Moon. They were chatting and planning to leave. According to the usual process of the ancestors' preaching, this time the ancestors' preaching has ended, and everyone should disperse. However, this time, Bodhi Patriarch pressed his hand and asked everyone to stay. The expressions of the Emperor Immortals immediately became solemn. The ancestor asked them to stay, most likely because he had something to tell them, and they must have taken it very seriously. Many people were guessing that it should be about the details of the Emperor Immortal trial to welcome guests, which needed to be arranged for them. But then, Bodhi Patriarch sacrificed the will of Tai Chi in the Bodhi Hall. This scene made many disciples stunned. Obviously, they didn't expect that Bodhi Patriarch didn't want to explain the reception, but what's the purpose of offering the Tai Chi will at this time? I don't know. The eternal battlefield will not be officially opened for more than 3 years. Why offer the Tai Chi will at this time? Many disciples were all confused. On the contrary, Xuexing Emperor Xian, who was more concerned about Wu Yu, had a touch of excitement in his eyes. He thought of a possibility. According to the time, it has been 10,000 years since Wu Yu was imprisoned in the heavenly demon battlefield. Could Wu Yu really get out of it? Xuexing Emperor Xian was still more concerned about Wu Yu. After all, Wu Yu defeated him with the realm of 9 heavens immortal king to become Bodhi Patriarch's disciple. Although Wu Yu was imprisoned in the heavenly demon battlefield only after 100 years of initiation, he was quite impressed by Wu Yu. After 10,000 years, he still thought of Wu Yu from time to time. For others, Wu Yu only appeared in their side for a short 100 years, but now he has been imprisoned in the heavenly demon battlefield for 10,000 years. Moreover, not many people think that Wu Yu has been imprisoned in the heavenly demon battlefield for 10,000 years and there is still a possibility of him coming out alive. At this time, Bodhi Patriarch waved his hand slightly, and saw a dark light shining in the air on the Tai Chi wheel, and then a figure came out from it. The dark light illuminated the scene of the heavenly demon battlefield. The figure that came out of it was Wu Yu, who had been imprisoned for 10,000 years. Wu Yu's figure appeared from inside, and all the disciples of the Emperor Immortal sect in the field were shocked. Everyone had an unbelievable expression on their face, as if they saw a dead person who came back to life. For them, Wu Yu, who was imprisoned in the heavenly demon battlefield, would be bitten by the gods of all things in the heavenly demon battlefield for 10,000 years, and basically had only one way to die. Unexpectedly, after 10,000 years, Wu Yu really came out alive. Moreover, when they saw Wu Yu coming out of the heavenly demon battlefield, his spirit and energy seemed to have undergone a transformation. He was different from the 9 heavens immortal king realm before, and even had 1 foot in the realm of the eternal Emperor Immortal. This scene obviously shocked all the Emperor Immortal disciples, and they could hardly believe it. Wu Yu, not only did he come out alive, but he also transformed in the heavenly demon battlefield. If this news spreads, the entire heavenly court will definitely be shocked again. For the 4 heavenly kings and Erlang Zhenshen, they originally wanted to capture Wu Yu. Wu Yu was originally locked up in the heavenly demon battlefield and was dead, but now that he has come out, won't they be so angry that they vomit blood? Moreover, Bodhi Patriarch told them in advance that the matter of killing Mo Lion would be written off after Wu Yu was sent to the heavenly demon battlefield. This made the 4 heavenly kings even more angry, but they couldn't be angry with Bodhi Patriarch. After all, Bodhi Patriarch is highly respected and is the top emperor of the heavenly court. The 4 heavenly kings combined are not as important as Bodhi Patriarch. So, almost everyone began to imagine what kind of revenge Wu Yu would face from the 4 heavenly kings next. Obviously, this revenge will not come openly, but if it is to be carried out in secret, Wu Yu can hide in the 3 stars cave of the slanting moon, and it is almost impossible for anything to happen. For the 4 heavenly kings, this is definitely a huge problem. I didn't expect this kid to survive. The battlefield of the heavenly demon is so terrible, but he can survive and even transform in it. Yuan Chan Emperor Xian was shocked. He could not doubt that Bodhi Patriarch had done something on the battlefield of the heavenly demon. After all, Bodhi Patriarch was highly respected and would definitely not do such a thing. Too powerful, this guy is really a role model for my generation. Zhuikong Emperor Xian looked envious. He admired Wu Yu for a while. There were not many people in the whole heaven who could defeat Zhuixing Emperor Xian at the level of 9 heavenly immortal king, and Wu Yu was one of them. What's more, now Wu Yu actually came out alive from the battlefield of the heavenly demon, which was 10,000 years ago. In 10,000 years, if it was any other 9 heavens immortal king, he would have died without leaving any traces. Wu Yu could come out alive and kicking, and even got a transformation, which was simply unimaginable. Before many disciples and emperors could come to their senses, Bodhi Patriarch announced on the spot. His voice was calm, "The last spot in the Emperor Immortal trial is given to Wu Yu. He is also qualified to compete with many emperors and descendants for the opportunity to enter the eternal battlefield." If the ancestors' disciples were just shocked before, this sentence was more like a heavy bomb thrown in the crowd. So that's how it is. No wonder the Grand Master only selected 127 places, 1 less than usual. It turns out that he left 1 place for Wu Yu. The Grand Master knew that Wu Yu could last for 10,000 years in the heavenly demon battlefield. If so, it means that the Grand Master values Wu Yu very much and has great confidence in him. This news is too explosive. If it spreads, it will definitely cause a great shock in the heavenly court. However, the Tai Chi will belongs to the Grand Master. All the places for participating in the Emperor Immortal trial are selected by him. Which other Emperor Immortal dares not obey? Many disciples praised Wu Yu. Some looked at him with admiration, some with disdain, and some with suspicion. For Wu Yu, the thoughts of many disciples were not important to him at all. The important thing is that he finally came out of the heavenly demon battlefield, which means that he has spent 10,000 years in the heavenly demon battlefield, but he feels that time has passed for tens of thousands of years. When he was bitten by the heavenly demon in the heavenly demon battlefield, he was in so much pain that he wanted to die, and his days were like years. I'm out, and I'll also participate in the Emperor Immortal trial. Wu Yu quickly figured out the current situation after hearing the announcement from Bodhi Patriarch. Not only did he not die from being bitten to death by the demons in the demonic battlefield, but he transformed and was going to participate in the Emperor Immortal trial, competing with other descendants of the Emperor Immortal for the opportunity to enter the eternal battlefield. When Erlang Shen learned the news, I wonder if he would be so angry that he would vomit blood. Wu Yu didn't know that. After Bodhi Patriarch released him from the demonic battlefield and announced the news, he quietly left without telling Wu Yu anything. However, Wu Yu knew very well that Bodhi Patriarch was helping him from beginning to end. If it weren't for Bodhi Patriarch's suggestion to arrange for him to enter the demonic battlefield, I'm afraid Wu Yu would be living a life worse than death under the tactics of the 4 heavenly kings. Wu Yu, I didn't expect you to do it. At this time, the gentle and elegant Emperor Zhuixing came up to him. He looked at Wu Yu, whose spirit and energy had changed, with surprise. This made him feel unfamiliar, but it was obvious that Wu Yu was still the same Wu Yu. His appearance had not changed, and his personality had not changed. Brother Zhuixing. Wu Yu smiled slightly when he saw an acquaintance. Finally leaving the heavenly demon battlefield, this feeling is so good. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1679. After thousands of years of separation, Emperor Xuexing saw Wu Yu again and left the Bodhi hall with him, praising him endlessly. I really didn't expect that you actually came out alive. I'm so happy and congratulated. It's so fun today, Emperor Xuexing laughed loudly. Even though he was as gentle and elegant as he was, he couldn't help but want to cheer for Wu Yu at this moment. I have to thank you, senior brother, for taking care of me, Wu Yu said seriously. He was grateful to Emperor Xuexing from the bottom of his heart. After becoming a disciple of Patriarch Bodhi, Emperor Xuexing had always been taking care of him. Even some things about the battlefield of heavenly demons and all things, gods and demons, were told to him by Emperor Xingxian, for which Wu Yu was naturally very grateful. Xuexing Emperor Xian obviously regarded Wu Yu as a friend, otherwise who would be bored and talk to him like this? What's more, if you get close to Wu Yu, you might offend top emperors such as the four heavenly kings and Erlang Shen. This is also the main reason why other disciples of Patriarch Bodhi basically don't get too close to Wu Yu. Thank you for your parting. You should go back and have a rest first. Your friends who haven't seen you in 10,000 years are thinking of you day and night. Emperor Xuexing patted Wu Yu on the shoulder. He said with a cheerful smile. Xuexing Dixian purely admired him and regarded him as a friend. However, there was nothing to talk about between them, so Xuexing Dixian did not take up his time and asked him to go back to find Luo first. Concubine them. Thank you, senior brother. Wu Yu nodded, and after Emperor Xuexing nodded with a smile, he turned around and headed towards the place where he originally lived. That palace was originally prepared for him by Patriarch Bodhi after he entered the palace. Even after 10,000 years, the palace still belongs to him and he has never thought of taking it back. So, Luo Bin and the others have been living here, together with Nanshan Wanjiao and Yezixi, waiting for Wu Yu for 10,000 years. I'm back. Returning to the palace, Wu Yu opened the palace door and said just this, and several noises immediately came from the palace. Immediately afterwards, Luo Bin, Nanshan Wanjiao and Yezixi, who were practicing separately, came out of the room and came to the hall. When they really saw Wu Yu, their eyes all showed extremely excited expressions. You're back. Luo Bin still couldn't believe it. She ran up immediately without thinking, and her slender body fell into Wu Yu's arms, crying with joy. During these 10,000 years, she had been worried about Wu Yu almost all the time. Although Emperor Ju Xing often came to take care of him, she was always worried about Wu Yu. The demon battlefield was such a terrifying place. Wu Yu could really hold on. Will it take 10,000 years? But now, she has finally let go of her worries. During this period of time, it can be said that Luo Bin's life was not much easier than that of Wu Yu. It is true that Wu Yu's immortal god was bitten by the demon and was in extreme pain every moment, but Luo Bin was also missing him all the time. Missing you will also hurt. She kept telling herself that Wu Yu had survived so many difficulties, and there was no way he could not survive this test. You must know that Wu Yu was just a mortal at that time, and finally defeated the ancient Emperor Yanhuang, who was already a god. This is just a battlefield of demons. It was just painful torture, so what could he do to defeat Wu Yu? Of course, even if she thinks so, she can't help but have nightmares. What if Wu Yu really doesn't come out in 10,000 years? Today is the 10,000 year anniversary. Do you know how nervous we are? Luo Bin cried in Wu Yu's arms. Wu Yu hugged her tightly, fearing that he would lose her if he let go. His eyes were full of tenderness. Don't worry, no matter what, I will never leave you. Okay, stop being so sour, it makes me want to cry. Yezixi was so happy that tears came out from the side, and she said while wiping her tears. It's just that I'm so bored when I come back. There are people around me. It's not good to teach children bad things. Nanshan Wanjiao covered Yezixi's eyes with a mischievous smile, preventing her from seeing the scene of Wu Yu and Luo Bin embracing. "You will always be such a fool." Wu Yu loosened his arms a little, and smiled and cursed at Nanshan Wanjiao. "This kid, I haven't seen him in 10,000 years, and he still looks like he deserves a beating. It really makes me want to go up and punch him. This is called handsome." Nanshan Wanjiao laughed, not feeling ashamed at all. "After thousands of years of separation, we finally see each other again, and the four of them are reunited." Nanshan Wanjiao, Yezixi and Luo Bin were all speechless with excitement. Although they had long felt that Wu Yu would be fine, they still felt relieved when they actually saw him alive and kicking. "Then King Dhritarashtra will probably be so angry that he vomits blood." Nanshan Wanjiao smiled contemptuously and said, "The Emperor Immortal Demon Lion should be the one called by King Chiguo to teach us a lesson. But now we have killed Demon Lion, and old Wu is still alive and kicking out of the demonic battlefield. They must be furious. Never mind them. As long as my brother Wu Yu is fine, as for the king of the kingdom, let's forget about making him angry to death." Yezixi clenched her little fists, not afraid of the king of the kingdom at all. "You guys." Wu Yu smiled and shook his head. The four of them reunited, and for a while, the palace was filled with laughter and laughter. Then, Wu Yu told them the news just announced by Patriarch Bodhi, and then asked, "Do you know the specific rules of this Emperor Immortal trial?" Luo Bin's excitement slowly calmed down, and she nodded and said, "It's a 2-by-2 elimination match. Patriarch Bodhi will give out 128 places every time. In fact, 127 people were selected before Patriarch Bodhi. When I got a spot, I had a premonition, but I didn't expect that he really left the last spot for you. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content." The opponents participating in the Emperor Immortal trial this time are said to be very strong. Nanshan Wanjiao also became seriously serious and talked about some of the things he had heard before. The first is the son of Erlang Zhenshen, named Yang Jian. It is said that he was personally mentored by the Jade Emperor and grew up next to the Queen Mother of the West when he was a child. That Erlang Shen, the reason why I am so polite to Patriarch Bodhi is because the son wants to participate in the Emperor Immortal trial. There is also the great god of the three seas, Li Tianji, the son of Neza. This guy has 3 heads and 6 arms. He has 3 heads and 6 arms. He is extremely powerful in combat. Speaking of which, Li Tianji is a bit like you, Lao Wu. He has also been killed before. Emperor Immortal has been punished. Of course, my father is a top Emperor Immortal, so the punishment will definitely not be as serious as yours." The two characters mentioned by Nanshan Wanjiao made Wu Yu look serious. Whether it is Yang Jian, the son of Erlang True God, or Li Tianji, the son of Neza, the great god of the 3 altar seas, they are not easy to deal with. First of all, they have sufficient resources for cultivating immortals, and they definitely have powerful epic artifacts in their hands. They are here to participate this time. The Emperor Immortal trial must have come with the idea of taking first place. In the view of Yang Jian and Li Tianji, this Emperor Immortal trial must be tailor-made for them. As long as they can become the first in the Emperor Immortal trial, they can then step into the eternal battlefield and achieve the goal of Immortal Emperor Immortal Realm, reach the sky in one step, and truly be included in the Immortal class. It was really not easy for Wu Yu to defeat the two of them. What's more, every time the Emperor Immortal trial is about to start in the eternal battlefield, the competition is extremely fierce, not to mention the children of the 2 top Emperor Immortals. There are also other super geniuses from all over the heaven. They are definitely not the only opponents Wu Yu has to face. Before, Wu Yu was able to defeat Emperor Zhuexing, which was shocking enough, but Yang Jian and Li Tianji were equally strong and not necessarily inferior to Emperor Zhuexing. Therefore, the result of this Emperor Immortal trial is not certain for Wu Yu. If he wants to win first place and qualify to enter the eternal battlefield, he must go all out to achieve it. The Patriarch Bodhi deliberately let me spend 10,000 years in the heavenly demon battlefield, and when I came out, I would undergo the Emperor Immortal trial. It must have been arranged in advance. It seems that he wanted me to take first place. Wu Yu thought to himself that he had some understanding of Patriarch Bodhi's thoughts. But he is not very clear about why Patriarch Bodhi treats him so well. Wu Yu was not tortured to death in the demon battlefield this time. Patriarch Bodhi must have offended Erlang Shen and the four heavenly kings. Although it may not matter to Patriarch Bodhi, it is not beautiful after all. It is not necessary if it is just to achieve Wu Yu's success. Wu Yu was a little puzzled. He thought that when he faced Patriarch Bodhi, he always felt a sense of intimacy. Until now, he didn't know where the intimacy came from. No matter what, I will definitely give my all in this Emperor Immortal trial. If Patriarch Bodhi wants me to take first place, I will take first place, step into the eternal battlefield, and become an Emperor Immortal. Wu Yu's heart was filled with fighting spirit. Originally, in the demonic battlefield, his energy and spirit had undergone a transformation, which already made him high-spirited to fight. Coupled with his will to achieve immortality, his fighting spirit was even more high. The Emperor Immortal trial will be 3 years later. In these 3 years, Xuanhuan Sangzing Cave will be preparing to welcome the arrival of various Emperor Immortals. I really want to know what the expressions of the four heavenly kings will be when they see Brother Wu Yu. Yezixi squinted her eyes and said expectantly. Don't think about it, practice hard. By then, old Wu will have broken through to the level of Emperor Immortal. We are still far away from each other. Isn't it embarrassing? Is it embarrassing for our predecessors who passed down the inheritance? Nanshan Wanjiu glanced at Yezixi and lightly said. Aren't you the same? Yezixi was not afraid of him at all and snorted softly, if you have the ability, go to the Emperor Immortal trial and see how far you can go. Forget it. Lao Wu is the Monkey King, the master of fighting and defeating the Buddha. I can't compare with this. I just need to be in charge, Nanshan Wanjiu said with a smile. For a time, Wu Yu's palace was filled with laughter and laughter. Listening to their daily banter and chatting, Wu Yu felt as if he hadn't seen him for a long time. The 10,000 years in the demonic battlefield seemed to him like tens of thousands of years had passed. It was really too long. Fortunately, he was finally back. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1680. 3 years passed in a flash. For Wu Yu, these 3 years consolidated the transformation of his spiritual will and brought him one step closer to the realm of the immortal emperor. But for Fang Kuntian, it was getting more and more lively every day. In the first 3 months of the Emperor Immortal trial, emperors came from afar to observe this Emperor Immortal trial. These emperors were all famous in the heaven, but not too top level. They also had children participating in this Emperor Immortal trial. The disciples of Bodhi Patriarch were busy and kept receiving these Emperor Immortal guests, letting them live in the Changliu Palace of the Ziyu Sangzing Cave Immortal Mansion. It is called the Changliu Palace, but in fact it is a small world. The world is extremely vast. Not to mention a few emperors, even billions of creatures can live there, and everyone's resting place is very spacious, and there will never be a sense of restraint. Among the first emperors who arrived, some were quite famous, and Wu Yu had seen them before in the scene of the Eternal Emperor burial. Many of them had participated in the destruction and massacre of the demon god realm. When these emperors arrived, Wu Yu would watch from afar and found that although these emperors were not famous and not as imposing as other top emperors, each of them had a Taoist style and looked polite, and there was no murderous aura in their eyes. Many of the emperors in the heavenly court looked like this, which made Wu Yu unable to imagine how ferocious they were when they participated in the destruction of the demon god realm. Were they controlled by someone at that time? However, who has the terrifying ability to control so many emperors in the heavenly court, including top emperors at the level of the Jade Emperor. Wu Yu was puzzled. He watched from afar as many emperors and immortals brought their offspring to Fangkuntian. In the Ziyu Sangzing Cave Immortal Mansion, Bodhi Patriarch basically did not appear. It was all the disciples who were busy welcoming many emperors and immortals. The emperors and immortals were not angry. After all, they knew very well that this emperor and immortal trial was entirely the idea of Bodhi Patriarch. In order to give their offspring the opportunity to enter the eternal battlefield, they all had to thank Bodhi Patriarch. By now, the news that Wu Yu was going to participate in the emperor and immortal trial had spread throughout the heavens. Although this made some emperors and immortals a little unhappy, there was nothing they could do, and it was impossible for them to show that kind of dissatisfaction, because if Bodhi Patriarch was unhappy, he would directly give Wu Yu the qualification to enter the eternal battlefield and cancel the emperor and immortal trial, and they would have nothing to say. You know, the Tai Chi wheel was originally an epic artifact belonging to Bodhi Patriarch. At present, among the strong men participating in the Emperor Immortal trial, Wu Yu is one. After all, he has defeated Emperor Immortal Juexing. I just don't know if Wu Yu, who came out of the battlefield of the Heavenly Demon and was bitten by the Heavenly Demon for 10,000 years, still has the same strength as before. In my opinion, the winners of this Emperor Immortal trial are still the son of Erlang Zhenshen, Yang Jian, and the son of the great god of the three altars and seas, Li Tianji. The two of them became famous much earlier than Wu Yu, and they are both able to defeat Emperor Immortals. After the Emperor Immortals came to the Three Stars Cave of the Slanting Moon, they lived in Changliu Palace, and they would discuss things with each other on weekdays. Some Emperor Immortals believed that Wu Yu's strength must have declined after 10,000 years of being bitten by the Heavenly Demon. Even if it didn't decline, it would be difficult to improve. In this Emperor Immortal trial, even if he could defeat ordinary opponents, it would be difficult to defeat strong men like Yang Jian and Li Tianji. Changliu Palace, which was extremely empty on weekdays, gradually became lively in the past 3 years. In addition to many unknown emperors, there were also some great emperors who arrived in the heavenly court. These emperors all held some official positions in the heavenly court and were considered to be quite prestigious figures among the emperors in the heavenly court. For example, the 4 heavenly kings, including the heavenly king of the Dhritarashtra, the heavenly king of the wide eyes, the heavenly king of the many hearings, and the heavenly king of the growth, came earlier because they were still quite concerned about Wu Yu. Another example was the ancient giant spirit god. After hearing that Wu Yu had actually come out alive from the battlefield of the demons, he still did not give up the idea of dealing with Wu Yu, but he had not thought of a good plan for the time being, and was hindered by the presence of Bodhi Patriarch in the middle, so he did not dare to take action. In addition to these, there were also some emperors who came with their children to participate, such as the Thousand Li Eyes and Wind Ears, the Great Marshal of Heavenly Blessing, the Thunder God and the Lightning Mother, the Sun Wandering God, the Night Wandering God, the Seven Stars God, etc. These emperors were all well known in the heavenly court, and some scattered emperors must have saluted when they saw them. They are considered the third level of Emperor Immortals in the heavenly court, and their status is quite noble. Whenever such an Emperor Immortal comes with his offspring, it always brings a huge momentum. Basically, there must be more than 10 disciples of Bodhi Patriarch to go out together to greet them, and other ordinary Emperor Immortals who came earlier will also go to greet and welcome them. Emperor Immortals such as Thousand Li Eyes, Wind Ears, Thunder God, and Lightning Mother all came with their offspring to participate in the Emperor Immortal trial, so they are still quite concerned about Wu Yu. After coming, they basically ask about Wu Yu's situation. On the surface, they are very concerned. For example, they will ask him if he is seriously injured after 10,000 years in the heavenly demon battlefield, etc., but in fact they are trying to get information, wanting to know whether Wu Yu's strength has declined compared to when he defeated Emperor Immortal Juexing. If it is still the same strength as before, then if their offspring meet Wu Yu, I am afraid that the chances of winning will not be too great. Of course, for them, this Emperor Immortal trial was just a matter of luck. With Li Tianji and Yang Jian participating, the first place in this Emperor Immortal trial would basically not be their offspring. So they just asked Wu Yu a little. Mainly, they took this opportunity to have an opportunity to communicate with the various Emperor Immortals in the Heavenly Court, talk about the current situation of the Emperor Immortals, and exchange some experiences in cultivation. In addition, they can also bring the younger generation out to see the world. There will be many top Emperor Immortals coming to this Emperor Immortal trial. It will not be bad to make friends with their offspring in the future. Wu Yu looked at the huge momentum when others welcomed the Emperor Immortals, and he felt a little sorry. Except for him, all other disciples of Bodhi Patriarch were sent out to welcome them, and only he was not assigned any tasks. Xuexing Emperor Immortal smiled and said that Wu Yu was a contestant participating in the Emperor Immortal trial, and he only needed to concentrate on preparing for the Emperor Immortal trial and did not need to go to welcome guests. But Wu Yu still felt a little sorry. This made him seem a bit exceptional among the disciples of Bodhi Patriarch. Of course, he did not force himself to welcome the Emperor Immortal. After all, his identity was sensitive, and welcoming the guests might lead to some unnecessary conflicts. After the arrival of the third-tier Emperor Immortals such as the four heavenly Wonang, the giant spirit god, the seven stars god, the day travel god, and the night travel god, the entire Fankan heaven was already very lively. Some young immortal kings with amazing talents could be seen everywhere. These were the young generation who were going to participate in the Emperor Immortal trial. Not long after, when there were still 2 months left in the Emperor Immortal trial, the second-tier Emperor Immortals began to arrive. The second-tier Emperor Immortals had a much higher position in the Heavenly Court than the previous Emperor Immortals. This echelon of Emperor Immortals included Erlang Shen Yang Jian, the 3 altars Sea Assembly Great God Neza, the tower-bearing Heavenly King Li Jing, and the 5 directions Holy Emperors. The Eastern Kongjin Holy Emperor, the Great Emperor Donghua, the Northern North Pole Xianling Do Mu Yuanjun, the Central Huangji Huangjiao Great Immortal, etc., all belong to this echelon. The status and identity of the emperors of this echelon are much higher than those of the 4 heavenly kings, giant spirits, etc., so every time this echelon of emperors comes, all the disciples of Bodhi Patriarch will go out to welcome them, and no one dares to neglect them. Although they are here to participate in the emperor trials, they are still seniors and cannot be offended by the disciples of Bodhi Patriarch. In addition, the disciples of Bodhi Patriarch also hope to have some exchanges with the descendants of these powerful emperors. After all, these descendants of emperors are likely to reach the realm of emperors in the future and become big figures in the heavenly court. There is no harm in making friends in advance. Wow, old Wu, you didn't see that Li Tianji, the son of Neza, the great god of the 3 altars and seas, was surrounded by beauties when he arrived. I was really envious. Nanshan Wanjiao went there to take a look, and came back a little jealous. The gods he usually hooked up with were just ordinary gods. But the 2 beauties around Li Tianji were not ordinary. If an ordinary immortal could get the favor of one of them, he would be able to rest easy and rise to the top in his life. Because the 2 women were, Fairy Yaoyun, the daughter of Emperor Donghua, who was a top-notch woman in both appearance and figure, Fairy Lingmi, the daughter of Xianling Do Mu Yuanzun, who wore a black long skirt. Among 10,000 female fairies, none was as sexy as her. So Nanshan Wanjiao was jealous and looked at Li Tianji with particular dislike. Bah, what have you been thinking about all day? You don't practice well, but you only care about beauties. You even said that about me before. You are so shameless. Yezixi was immediately upset when she saw his look. After all, she was also a great beauty. Why did Nanshan Wanjiao look down on her? What's more, Nanshan Wanjiao had blamed her for not practicing well before, and she was very vindictive. Besides cultivation, there should always be some other fun, don't you think so, old Wu? Nanshan Wanjiao was smiling and didn't care at all. He just said, to be honest, if I meet Li Tianji during the Emperor Immortal trial, old Wu must beat me up, otherwise it will be too annoying and unpleasant. Li Tianji is quite powerful. He is one of the hot candidates for the Emperor Immortal trial this time. If you face him, you must be careful, Luo Bin said with some concern. Yeah. Wu Yu nodded. His focus, like Luo Bin, is on the strength of the young generation of immortal kings participating in the Emperor Immortal trial. He cares about Li Tianji and Yang Jian, the son of Erlang Shen, because he knows that both of them have the strength to defeat the Emperor Immortal. After this batch of second-tier Emperor Immortals came, there was only 1 month left before the start of the Emperor Immortal trial. At this time, a heavyweight figure came. Before this, Bodhi Patriarch had not shown up. Even when Erlang Zhenshen and his companions came, they were only greeted by his disciples. But when this heavyweight Emperor Immortal arrived, Bodhi Patriarch personally came out to greet them.